my dears, and welcome back to my corner of the internet. I'm Shannon, and today I've got another book talk video to share with you guys. And today we are talking about Alice Hoffman's new book, and that is The World That We Knew. First of all, look at this cover. It's so beautiful. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but all the silver on here is holographic, and it's just really, oh, there we go, you can kind of see it. It's just really beautiful. Anyway, I'm a big fan of Alice Hoffman. I've read, I think, all of her books, of which there are quite a few, and in the 4 years, or almost 4 years that I've had this channel, I've reviewed every new release that has come out. So I was really excited to see this on the shelves. Couldn't wait to read it. If you're unfamiliar with Alice Hoffman, she wrote Practical Magic, which the Sandra Bullock, Nicole Kidman movie was based on. She wrote the follow-up to that, which was The Rules of Magic, and she's written a ton of others, like The Dove Keepers, Faithful, so many. We'd be here all night if I tried to name them all. And another thing to know about Alice is that her books are always involving very real situations or events, but then woven into the story are elements of magical realism, which I absolutely love. I love any stories that have that touch of magic to it, and she does them in such a way in that they're almost ignorable. And by ignorable, I mean they just fit into the world of the story so well that it just seems like, well, yeah, of course that's a thing. You know what I mean? And it's just so good. Anyway, The World That We Knew takes place during World War II. And it tells the story of many people, actually, many Jewish people during the war. And we start off, we meet a woman named Hanny. And she has a 12-year-old daughter named Leah. And they live in Berlin. They live in a home with Hanny's mother, Leah's grandmother, and things are really starting to pick up with the Germans and the war, and Hanny's starting to get really nervous. She knows that her mother is too old and sick to travel, but she desperately wants to get her daughter to safety, especially after a rather jarring event that happens one night when Leah and Hanny leave the house to go in search of food, and Leah is attacked by a soldier on the streets. And so soon after that, Hanny goes and she approaches a rabbi. It's the rabbi's wife she speaks to first, and the rabbi's two daughters are around when she does. And so in this story, the brand of magical realism that's woven into, you know, World War II, a very real event, is sort of Jewish mysticism. And so she goes to the rabbi's wife and she asks if the rabbi would, for her and her daughter, make a golem. And now a golem is a creature that's made out of clay and water. It's created by magic, and she wants the rabbi to do it for her so that this golem can accompany her daughter and get her out of Berlin and over into France. Because in France, the family has sort of distant cousins, and she thinks that Leah can go and stay with them, but she can't travel alone. Like I said, she's only 12 years old. So this golem would be made out of clay and water, and then its whole purpose is whatever you tell it its purpose is. So in Hanny's instance, it would be someone to protect her daughter and to accompany her on a trip to get her out of Berlin. The rabbi's wife immediately refuses, tells her to leave, tells her it can't be done. And Hanny really tries to appeal to the woman's motherly instincts and motherly nature, because as Hanny can see, she has two daughters of her own, but she says, no, it's too dangerous, it can't be done. After Hanny leaves, the rabbi's eldest daughter, a girl named Eddie, so it's Eddie and Marta, and they're very young, they approach Hanny, and Eddie says, I'll do it. I've seen my father do it many times, I can do it. What I want in return is 2 tickets for me and my sister to get out of here. Because, you know, her parents aren't like Hanny. They're not ready to flee and get their daughters out of there. So Hanny agrees. She says, sure, I'll get you 2 tickets on the next train if you do what I ask. And so Eddie says she will. Now, as far as the folklore of the golem goes, they're men. These creatures are men. But Hanny says she doesn't want a man escorting her daughter. You know, times are scary, and she just doesn't want a man with her 12-year-old daughter. And Eddie's like, listen, I don't know how to make a woman. But they figure it out in certain ways that I won't go into here, but they figure it out. And Ava is born, I guess we'll say. So though she's made of clay and water, she looks like a woman. She's a very tall, very strong woman. And, you know, her sole purpose is to get Leah, to safety. They leave, they go home, they collect Leah, and they tell her, like, you have to go. This is a friend of the family or a cousin or whatever they say, which Leah's not buying, but her mother gives her a necklace that she's to open. It's a locket, and inside she tells her to open it when she gets to safety. So the girl packs a suitcase, and Ava and Leah leave. They get on the train, and on the train are Eddie and Marta. The tickets that Hanny had bought them were for the same train, and Eddie's a little shaken up by that. She's like, oh my god, I gotta be on the train with this thing, because to Ava, Eddie is her maker, and so there's a weird bit of relationship there between the golem and the maker. It doesn't really have its own thoughts or feelings or free will. Its purpose is to serve, but given enough time, the longer it lives, the more dangerous it gets, because as time goes by, the golem begins to have its own thoughts and feelings, and you don't really want that for something that is a wild card, essentially. You don't know what's going to happen when this thing, essentially, gets its own thoughts and feelings. So they're not supposed to live for long, and you don't want to lose control of it. So while they're on the train, eventually it gets stopped, and people come on board, and they're checking to see if there are any Jewish people on the train. And Eddie and Marta know that they will stick out like a sore thumb, so they start to leave the train. And they're walking towards the back of it, and they get out. But as they're sort of running through the field, somebody sees them, and a shot is fired. And Eddie's little sister, Marta, is killed, unfortunately. And Eddie is savagely heartbroken. She knows she has to keep going. She has to leave her there. She can't stop and mourn or try to move her, because she'll be shot as well. So she runs away, leaving her sister behind, and that is something that stays with her forever, as it would. So from there we get the journey of Eddie and then Ava and Leah. Once Ava and Leah reach Paris, they go to the home of their distant cousins, and they knock on the door, and they're like, hey, we need to live here. And, you know, of course, that's asking a lot during this time when food is scarce as it is, and, you know, 2 new mouths to feed showing up at the door, that would be enough to be very off-putting. And but eventually they do let them in, and in the house there are 2 sons, Julian and Victor, so they become part of the story as well. We also hear at this point of a housekeeper and cook who was named Marianne, who just left shortly before they arrived. So the family's like, you know what, okay, it'll work, because you can take over the jobs that Marianne used to do, but now she's gone. And then as the book progresses, Marianne becomes a part of the story as well. So now we have these 6 people, and we're following them on this journey as they're trying to survive World War II as Jewish people, and one a person made of clay. And it's just very, very gut-wrenching. Alice Hoffman tells this story so well. She tells it so honestly. There's no sugarcoating here. So often, just in the middle of a paragraph, she'll hurl a big, sad piece of news at us. Like when we find out that even though Leah is out here and she's traveling with Ava, you know, she still has hopes of seeing her mother again. And then at one point, you know, we're given that curveball that's not going to happen, that shortly after she left, the soldiers came and took her mother and killed her grandmother because she was too old to take. So they just killed her right there. So we get all these really, and that's just the tip of the sad news iceberg. It's constantly getting these big bits of information hidden in sentences and paragraphs, and then it's business as usual because I assume that's what it was probably like. There was no time to mourn. It was one thing after the other when you're just trying to survive and live and find people. So for this particular book, I'm not going to go in depth with everything that happens because, like I say, there's 6 characters that are all very much main characters, and to tell you each of their stories right now, we would be here for literally hours because already I've barely scratched the surface in this video. You know, it's not short as it is, but that's okay because this is a book that I would wholeheartedly recommend to anybody and everybody. It's such a good read, and I love reading tales about people in World War II. That is still such a upsetting tragedy that, you know, every day as I'd be reading, I'd stop and say to my husband, like, can you believe this happened so recently? It's so mind-boggling. Like, while this was happening, my husband's father was alive. Like, he was a baby, but he was alive. It's so crazy to think that this happened so recently. And it's important, like, it's important to remember that and to read these books that put you there, no matter how painful it is, no matter how difficult it is. Another book that I loved for that reason was The Nightingale, again about 2 sisters, and by Kristen Hanna. I love Kristen Hanna. She's another one that when I see she's got a book out, I grab it immediately. And I've done, I think, 3 or 4 reviews on this channel of Kristen Hanna books, but that one was just so good. So if you like World War II stories, which saying like is such a weird word when you're talking about World War II, but you know what I mean. If you like World War II stories, or you like magical realism, or you like Alice Hoffman in general, I definitely recommend picking this up. It's such a fantastically told story. Alice Hoffman is one of those writers that when I finish her books, I'm like, oh, wish I'd thought of that. This is definitely one of those. So yeah, I'm not going to give any spoilers here because I wholeheartedly recommend you pick it up and give it a read, and let me know when you do what you thought of it. I'd love to know. So yeah, this is a story of family, of perseverance, of responsibility, because here's one thing I'll tell you. I'll give you one spoiler to sort of, this won't ruin the book for you, so you can still read it, but it'll maybe pique your interest even more. The locket that Hanny gave Leah when she left, at one point, I can't remember what it is, I think Leah's running and she falls or something happens and the locket pops open. And she wasn't supposed to read it until she got to safety, but she sees it now and she reads it, and it says, like, when you get to safety, you have to kill it. And she, of course, the it she's talking about is Ava, the golem. But as I'm sure you can imagine, as they're traveling together, going through so much together, Leah and Ava develop a very close relationship. And, you know, when Hanny had this golem created, I'm sure she thought, you know, this war was going to last 6 months, a year at most. But then, you know, by the time Leah is nearing safety, we're 4 or 5 years on, and a lot happens. Definitely give this a read. And if you've already read it, again, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of it. I would love to hear your thoughts. And let me know also, what's your favorite, your all-time favorite Alice Hoffman book? I think this is actually in the running to be mine. Anyway, I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. It's Remembrance Day here on Monday, so my daughter's off tomorrow and she's off Monday, so we've got a nice long weekend and I'm very excited about it. So yeah, I hope your weekend is good, and if you're in Canada, happy Remembrance Day. Speaking of a war, Remembrance Day here is our day where we remember all of the fallen soldiers in all of the wars. So yeah, on Monday I'm going to be uploading my second update for NaNoWriMo 2019. So stick around for that if you'd like. Also, subscribe if you're here. You might as well. Thanks so much, guys, and I will see you soon. Bye.